Hi guys, this is Hero. How's everyone doing today? So today I'm going over how to lower lust, okay? And this is gonna be a little bit of a more important video, so it'll probably be a little bit longer, right? Why? Because lust literally is in everyone's subconscious or conscious sometimes, right? And it is driving a lot of our decisions without knowing it. So this is literally affecting us all day, every day, right? So I think I need to talk about this for a little bit more than the usual 10 minutes. I would assume it's gonna go past 10 minutes, right? Um, but the one thing we want to make sure that we understand is that lust will be present always, and that we are trying to balance it to a grounded state. Okay, this title, Lowering Lust, it kind of implies that we can lower it to where there's never going to be any more lust ever again. Okay, that's not true. Okay, so I just want to make sure that I clear that up right now. Lust will always be present, right? I don't care if you are like a monk or something like that, how much you meditate, whatever. If you are a man and you see like a curvy, attractive woman, the thought is going to cross your mind that this is an attractive woman and stuff like that. It is going to throw you off a little bit. Okay, I don't like now how much it throws you off. Like some people can fully take over and consume them. Some people, whatever, but it will be there. Okay, I don't care who it is. Same thing with a woman, right? You see like a tall, broad shoulders guy, that the thought is going to enter your brain at some level, subconscious or conscious, right? Now, it's going to be there, right? But we basically want to balance it to a grounded state. Okay, that's one of the goals here. And I'm going to discuss all of them later, but one of the goals is to balance it, right? Certain people where it takes over and consume them, that is not grounded, right? They have allowed the lust to become ungrounded and consume them, right? If it's kind of grounded, it's kind of operating like normally and you're able to deal with it, right? But when it becomes ungrounded, that's when it becomes a problem. So we want to basically ground it as much as possible, the lust, right? So it doesn't just take over and, cause excess frustration or like, all kinds of negative emotions and possibly leads us to take action on that possibly and it lead to consequences. Now, another thing is that lust can exist in many different forms, right? We're not just talking about sexual lust here, even though that's the example that I just gave. Lust is any sort of like consumption or desire, craving for any sort of sensation. So that means like food, right? It could also be the obvious and the strongest is sexual lust, right? But it could be food, could be some type of material possession, consuming. You're lusting for like a lot of money, or you're like a certain experience. I'm not talking about just a sexual experience, but like staying in like a nice hotel, right? It feels real cozy and stuff like that, or like having like a really lusting for like really nice outfits, or like driving a really nice car, right? All this, any sort of material or sensational, like sensation stimulation, okay, material consumption, any sort of consumption, right, of a person or something. And I'm not talking about like eating them like cannibals. I'm talking about like sexually consuming them, like indulging in that experience with them. These are like some of the ways that our mind can indulge in lust. Okay, so we talked about balancing it to a grounded state, right? One thing we need to realize is the way we can do that is reducing spikes or observing spikes, right? It's ungrounded because it's spiking up and down, right? So, like similarly to if you were to get angry, right? There's two extremes, right? And in my videos, a lot I talk about you want to not be on the extremes as much as possible. You kind of want to be in the middle, right? When it comes to aggressiveness, right? Like a kind of grounded aggressiveness is basically if you are, whenever you have to do something, or even if you just want to do something, but there's some sort of grounded thought process in asserting yourself, right? But you just being aggressive and just fighting, someone that you momentarily got upset at, or doing something extremely unrational, asserting your aggressiveness, in somewhat of a temporary fashion. That's kind of like on an extreme, right? And then on another extreme is like in a situation where you would probably need to assert your aggressiveness, like someone is like attacking you or something like that, and then you just do nothing, right? You shut down, right? That would be an extreme on the other end. So like with lust, right? You want to reduce spikes, right? Why? Because The more you spike up, the more you spike down. And the more you spike down, the more you spike up. Okay? And we're not talking about like lowering it, right? Or like grounding it out or whatever, right? If you're artificially going up and down, like it's like if you're artificially going up, it's gonna artificially come down. If you're artificially coming down, it's artificially coming up, right? And now why is this bad? If you are artificially going up, right? I mean, you guys would know the host of the problems, right? If you are letting the lust just kind of take over you, I mean, this is going to add some consequences, and then it's going to come down. So when you want to healthily indulge in lust, which I'll talk about later, and it's a start point, so definitely if you want to tune in for that. But when you want to healthily indulge in lust, you're not able to, okay, which is probably the biggest problem. And on the other side, you try to shut yourself down, like don't really artificially trying to reduce lust and things like that. This, it can lead you to bounce back and then the lust is like sky high. Or B, let's just say the lust is there and you might not act on it even when it's sky high, but it's causing frustration, which might like increase your negative emotions. So you might get like mad at other people easily and stuff like that, right? So you want to reduce just your spikes, or at least observe your spikes. And I'll talk about how to completely like reduce it and get to a grounded state now, okay? But hopefully all this made sense. One thing you want to recognize is posture and diet, exercise, and body aware, right? Lust exists all over the place in your body, right? If you are tight, if you are consuming crap, if you have a lot of stored up energy that's not being released in a healthier way, or if you're just overall not aware of your body, this is one way of how it can be ungrounded, right? Your lust. So the more you stretch, we have all kinds of muscles that we're not using properly at all. We're either not using it, we're not using properly at all, and then some we're overusing it, right? So this is causing all sorts of like weird mobility patterns that like probably people 100 years ago didn't have, all sorts of like weird like tightness and like body disformations and all this kind of stuff, right? Now, you won't really hear this talked about a lot like in the medical field, right? Because they have like their like solutions, which is basically just very temporary. But yeah, but just one thing is that, the more you stretch, the more you do yoga and things like that. And look, this doesn't you don't have to necessarily go to like the number one yoga the number one like yoga guru in the whole world, right? If some person in your community just knows it a little better than you, that's fine. You can just take tips from that person, right? You need to lower your ego a little bit and just accept that you're just a regular human being trying to learn something from another regular human being, right? You're not some special queen or king that needs to go to the number one person ever, right? Same with diet, right? This is a little bit more simple, and I think I made other videos on this. Anything that makes you feel like crap, never eat it again, I'd say, for the most part. Unless you're like eating it all the time, then just lower it. But processed food, empty calories like sugar and fried stuff, get rid of all that, okay? You want to exercise. This can vary a lot from person to person. I personally like, lifting heavy weights and stuff like that, like powerlifting. But like, sometimes the best, I'll get to walking in a second. It's a separate point. But you can also do like, any sort of like high intensity interval training or whatever, right? Just work out your whole body however you want. You can swim, you can do whatever you want, right? But just, there's so much energy stored up. If you don't store it up, your body's going to try to do something with it, okay? And that you'd rather, like I said, exert it out slowly than just have like a big shebang and it come out and then in the form of lust and then maybe might not be the way exactly you wanted it, okay? And just overall, just be aware of your body, right? The more you're aware of your body, the more you will actually lower your lust and kind of ground it out, right? You can lower it a little bit, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. But you also want to ground it out, right? You want to do both. It's always going to be there, right? But you want to lower it and ground it out, right? But like naturally lower it, not artificially lower it, or else you're just kind of going into a spike and then due for a rebound, right? So this is kind of how you don't want to just be like, oh, I'm not thinking these thoughts or anything like that, right? You're just suppressing it. Whatever you suppress is just gonna, blow back out. Okay. Now we talked about the body here, right? Now let's talk about the mind. So we want to be you want your mind to be still, right? You want to take walks and you want to do meditation. Okay? So meditation is basically, an extreme way of stilling the mind. But just in general, you want your mind to be still, right? So this means like don't just be looking for ways to keep your mind running, right? Because if you do, your mind's gonna always want to be running. And then when something like lust pops in your mind, it has a tendency to spike up more, okay? So, and one thing we can do also besides meditation is walking, right? Walking is probably the number one thing that is missing from people's lives today. Okay, it is literally like a combination of exercise and meditation, which is like two most best things, right? The thing is that walking is like so grounded and like so like simple that people need the a little bit more extreme in their life so they don't walk. But people were walking like so much in the past, decades and centuries and things like that, which is something that we need to do today. And I might even make a separate video on this. Maybe it might be my next video, okay? But just practice your mind being still. So stillness, don't just constantly look for stimulation on your phone or anything like that. Meditate and definitely walk, okay? Next is eliminate fuel for lust, right? Don't be watching any like movies with like, extremely attractive people that you would never have a chance with in your real life. Don't be like going to like clubs and stuff with like, again, people that you would really have no chance with or that are presenting themselves in a way that it appears very enticing and superficial. Don't be, looking at social media again where there's all kinds of people that look nothing like what they do on the screen, but now your mind is adding fuel for this lust, right? And just wants to release in all kinds of situations. You also want to get rid of any agitation, right? So this kind of ties into the fuel thing. So the fuel is more habits, right? Like if you're going out partying, if you're like whatever's on your phone and things like that. There could be other temporary agitating things that come in your life that you want to get rid of, right? It's not really a part of your habit, right? Like if like there's someone at work that's always like flirting with you and things like that. I mean, maybe you guys are meant to be, right? But like most of the time you guys are not. So maybe you want to get rid of that, right? Especially if they're, really pesky and things like that. Another thing is that also with getting rid of agitation, it's not only about certain things that pop in, but when you do have certain frustrations and things like that, you want to make sure it gets outletted healthily, right? Through exercise, walking, meditation, things like that. So when, there's going to be certain random situations that, you can't control, right? Life is life, okay? You can go to the gas station and then there's somebody there that, whatever, right? Or you're traveling and, you see some really nice restaurant, but, maybe the food there is not going to be good for you. Something like that, right? There's all kinds of situations. I can't go into every single one of them. Well, you can watch some TV show and there's some great food or whatever. Just try to outlet that however you can, right? And that you can do one of these, but also indulge in lust healthily, right? So we, at the end of the day, are human beings, right? We have lust. Sometimes it is okay to exert that lust, right? It is okay to, eat good food, have sex, whatever, right? You just want to make sure you're doing it healthily. You're not doing it ungroundedly, right? You're not doing it off of extremely temporary emotions, right? I'd recommend, like, for example, if you're indulging in sex, you're probably doing it with, like, some sort of long-term committed partner, right? Ideally, your, like, spouse, like, full-blown who you're married to, right? Hopefully, all right. And then, like, with everything else, right? You can kind of follow the same patterns, right? It's a start point because a lot of times when you're trying to lower it, you don't acknowledge that, yes, you still have to do it, right? But you need to indulge in lust. Just make sure when you do it, you're trying to do it like as good as you can, right? Like in the most, I don't want to say proper, but like in as much of a grounded way possible just like how sometimes you're just trying to deal with it without necessarily acting on it. Sometimes you do have to act on it, right? Like, because like I said, you're a human being at the end of the day. But when you do act on it, also act on it in a very grounded way. Sometimes when you don't act on it, you're very grounded. But when you act on it, now all of a sudden it's like, oh, I never act on it. So let me just, like be extremely ungrounded and just go crazy, right? That's what I kind of want to avoid here, right? When you don't act on it, be grounded. But even when you do act on it, be grounded, okay? Or even if you're ungrounded, try to make it as grounded as possible. Like with, like your spouse or something like that. Don't like, yeah. I think you guys get the point of what I'm trying to say here, okay? Because you want to be as grounded as possible because all your desires will never be fulfilled, right? So that's just an illusion. So just try to act on it as grounded as possible also. And what grounded is from person to person is going to vary, okay? Next is important of life purposes and goals, okay? A lot of the times, if you don't have any life purpose or goals, your lust is going to increase through the roof, right? However, if you have some sort of purpose or goal, this doesn't need to necessarily make $2 million a year, okay? This doesn't need to necessarily solve the world's greatest problems. This doesn't need to necessarily, you can just like, enjoy to cook just to cook or something like that. Or enjoy like to exercise just to exercise. Even if you're not going to be, the next biggest like, swimsuit model or something like that, right? You can just do things just to do things. Or you can just help people just to help people. You might not get some kind of award or, any sort of recognition or something, but you can just do things just to do things, right? You can just have goals just to have goals, right? Even if they don't necessarily go anywhere. Right now, don't be like doing stuff that's going to agitate you, right? Like play like too much video games or something like that. Or like, participate in goals that further agitate you, right? Where you're like looking for some kind of validation or some kind of, you know what I'm talking about, right? I don't need to explain myself, but you want to have the importance of like grounded goals and life purposes you want to do. And that will also, help reduce or ground this out a little bit more, okay? And then just one last tip that wasn't on this board. Lust will be present, so you just want to, like, I say this in every video, so I didn't even want to write it down, but just accept any thoughts that come to mind, right? Especially like, if you're not supposed to think something or something like that, you just want to accept all your thoughts, right? Because, you don't have to act on them, but what you resist persists, right? So you just want to accept it, accept everything. You don't have to act on it. It doesn't mean you believe it. You can just accept it, right? And the acceptance basically frees your mind from those thoughts. So that's pretty much it. If you have any questions or comments, you can feel free to let me know. And until next time, I'll talk to you guys later. Thank you all very, very much for watching.